And what's up, everybody? I'm back with another movie review today. I hinted at it in the Aquaman review, but yes, the reason why we saw Aquaman is so that we could get ready to watch Aquaman 2, which just came out in 2023. In fact, this was one of the last things that we did in 2020, or 2023, I mean, that we actually did. No, actually, we saw it was the first movie we saw in 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong. Times get all mixed up and whatnot. But anyway, but yeah, the second one it came out it came out in 2023, but we saw it in 2024. That whole thing, and we actually were able to see it in the theaters, which was cool, and stuff like that. So I got a lot of thoughts on this movie, though. Let's jump right into it, shall we? There's a lot of goofy stuff in this movie. They definitely focus more on like the more humor, one-liner aspect to it, but there's also a lot more serious points as well, and just a lot of things that just were really out there for ways to go about with the movie. I totally forgot to talk about Amber Heard in the first review of my review of Aquaman. Amber Heard is cringe. It will always be cringe. There's a lot less of Amber Heard in this movie, but she still plays a prevalent role, so it's cringe. There you go. But other than that, I mean, it's just a lot of other goofy plot points and a bunch of other stuff that just really, when they establish them, it feels a lot more goofy. But a lot of them do end up working out as the movie goes on, which is nice. Yeah, and there's a lot of fun action in this movie. I didn't really talk about the action scenes a lot in the first movie just because I didn't feel like a lot of them were super memorable. I mean, there's a lot of big fights and stuff like that, but I thought the fighting scenes in this movie were a lot better than the first one. They felt more intense. They felt cooler to watch. They felt less predictable with how they were going to go, and maybe that's because we watched it in the theater, because we were like, our seats were rumbling and we had like the surround sound systems that made it feel more innovative and whatnot, so maybe that's why. But it just, especially near the end of the movie, there's a lot of good ones, with a lot of fighting and stuff, and there's a lot of epic scenes, and that's a really good job on the directors and the editors part as well, to make it feel so real but also just like super badass, so boom boom, everything like that. Super cool. Did a great job there. Another really strong suit for this movie, in fact, you could argue this could be one of the stronger suits for this movie, is the character development that goes on. There's two in particular that I want to point out. The scientist, first off, is one of them. I didn't talk about the scientist really at all in the first movie. He was in it, but only for a little bit. But he plays a much larger role in this movie. But he goes from just a guy who, just wanted to see Atlantis, and he gets himself into more than he bargained for. He's playing the bad guy's role, but then he does a really good job of realizing the severity of the situation and jumping on to help the good character side. I mean, he does some badass stuff later on in the movie. He does a lot of cool stuff. He says bag up the kid, but instead of bagging up the kid, he bags up a bomb, and that's just a cool little reveal that happens there. And it's really awesome, the stuff that he does. And the other character development that I want to talk about is with the brother of Aquaman, or the step brother of Aquaman. The main villain from the first movie, who was back in this movie. He's not the main villain. He's recruited to help out, and there's a whole thing with breaking him out of jail and whatnot. Which is just weird, because you're just gonna put him back in jail again anyways. What is going on there? But there's a lot of cool character development with him as well, because he just realized that there is a brotherly bond that does grow throughout this movie, which is just pretty absent. Any of that was absent from the first movie, but this movie did a great job of putting that in there. And just the tipping point near the end of the movie, when he saves the one guy from falling down into the monsters mouth from when they're climbing up the pole near in the ice cave thing. That was a really, really cool tipping point, and it did a great job there. So, and then the end credit scene with him eating the burger, which that was cool too. I like that. So, but those, I mean, there were other like smaller pieces of character development and stuff, and the other characters weren't bad. Like, there's a lot of good characters in this movie, but those are two that I think were really well done with this movie. The first movie I also didn't mention in the review, though. The first movie had some references to like games or other films and stuff like that. But this one had a lot of references. There was a Zelda reference with some of the enemies in the movie. There was a Pikmin 3 reference with the sand belching mirror slug thing. There was a Castaway reference when they mentioned Wilson, which implies that that did happen. That movie did happen in this movie's timeline, which is a little weird to think about. And there were a bunch of others too that I just couldn't really think of any more specific ones, but there were a ton of other ones in the movie. And really, they were good. I mean, I think some of them were a little less intentional than others. Like the Wilson thing, that's pretty intentional. Any movie fan's gonna know exactly what you're talking about right off the bat, but like the Zelda or Pikmin things, like those are not gonna be as direct. You know what I'm saying? But I think it was all done really, really well. And overall, this movie was significantly better than the first one, in my opinion. I think it was much more well put together. Some really cool action scenes, and I was actually kind of surprised. I didn't expect to enjoy this one significantly more than the second one, or than the first one, but I did. I really, really liked this movie. So, but that's gonna do it though. So my final score though for Aquaman 2, I'm gonna have to give this one a good, probably 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. You could argue for a 9, but I'm gonna leave it at an 8. It's a really good film though, and a good one to start off my theater seeking adventures in 2024. So that's really, really good. But that's gonna do it for this review though. If you've ever seen Aquaman 2, I'd love to know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. That's gonna do it for this video. So stay tuned for much more amazing content, including more movie reviews and other awesome stuff. Got some more coming out for you guys. Don't worry. Until next time. See you guys later. Goodbye.